Hey y'all, come on in the kitchen. We're gonna start talking about some fall things. And this is a request that I've had just recently. And it is the recipe for pumpkin gooey butter cakes. When I started the Bag Lady back in 1989, I started June the 19th. And by the time September and October rolled around, I was making the same old vanilla gooey butter cakes every day. And I have to say that one might be my favorite gooey. But I was tired of cooking the same thing every day. So I said, I'm gonna see if I can make some gooey butter cakes using pumpkin. I think it would work. So I did, and people loved them. And it's been a staple at the Lady and Sons restaurant since the beginning of time. So, and it's so easy. I'm gonna take a yellow cake mix and dump it in here. This is one of the most delectable desserts, y'all. The gooey butter cake, you can't beat it. And I'm gonna put in 1 egg and 1 stick of melted butter. I stood up here so long, it's about not melted anymore. But it's melted enough. Okay. So we're gonna beat this, and it's gonna be real thick. Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's
Will it reach?
That's as far as it's going.
Okay, here we go. Let me put on my glasses so I can see what I'm doing. This is the fastest hand mixer I have ever seen.
It's got a quick jump start.
I'm telling you. Okay, you can do this by hand, but why when I can get that to do the work for me? All right, now I'm gonna spray a 13 by 9 by 2. And you know, you can make these any thickness that you want. You can use a 9 by 9 or, you know, a smaller one if you want them thicker. All right, so we're just gonna press this into the bottom and kind of around the sides. And see how easy that comes together? With just 1 egg and a stick of melted butter. And that makes the best crust, y'all. Like I said, I let it come up the sides just a little bit. And you just want to make sure that you get your dough as even in the pan as you can. So you won't have a real thick part somewhere and a thin part in another place. Okay, that looks pretty good, y'all. So I've got an 8-ounce package of softened cream cheese. I've already melted it.
Good for you.
Thank you. I'm just a doing over here, Teresa. Get every bit of that. I love cream cheese. All right, so I'm gonna whip this and just get it kind of creamy. That makes me laugh. All right. Now I'm going to add 1 can of pumpkin. They didn't do us right on the plug-ins here, did they, Eddie?
No, I gotta figure that out again.
Yeah. All right, and I'm using just pure pumpkin. I'm not using a pumpkin pie filling because that would have all kind of seasonings in it and a sweetener. So, I'm gonna put this in.
That's pumpkin puree.
Pumpkin puree, just straight pumpkin. And I'm sure the shelves are already loaded with pumpkin. You know, usually in September, they start loading up the shelves with fall things. And we think of pumpkins when fall rolls around. Okay, so I've got that, and to that I'm gonna add, the recipe calls for 2 eggs, but actually when I'm making the pumpkin, because of all the soft pumpkin, I put 3 eggs in the center. It will work with just 2, but it's one of those things, I just use 3 to help set it up just a little bit better. Okay, so I got my 3 eggs. We're gonna blend this together. Until it's nice and creamy. And it's on its way. So, because we're using a plain pumpkin, there's no spices in it at all. So I'm gonna add some cinnamon. Let's see. I think I'm gonna add maybe a teaspoon. Maybe a teaspoon of cinnamon. And if you like, you could add nutmeg or cloves or any of those fall spices. Looking good, y'all. All right. You know what? Because this machine is so serious, I think I'm just gonna stir in my butter. Because I'm afraid butter will be everywhere if I don't. All right, so the entire recipe, you're gonna need 2 sticks of butter. 1 for the crust and 1 for the filling. I'm gonna stir that in, and then we've got to make it sweet. And we're gonna do that with a 1-pound bag of confectionate sugar. Once that butter is safely mixed up in there. I don't like to taste raw eggs, but I'll put a little bit more cinnamon. And I'm gonna turn around here and see what I've got in the way of some other spices. Let's see. I've got ground allspice, ground nutmeg, ground mace. I think I'm gonna add just a wee little bit of nutmeg. Now nutmeg is a much stronger spice to me than cinnamon. So, and ground clothes, so that's all right. So I'm gonna just add our sugar in about 2 batches. If you have never made the pumpkin gooey butter cakes, please do yourself a favor and try. Especially if you're having people over for a Halloween celebration. People will thank you. They will thank you. All right, so the last part. And I like buying 1 pound bags of confectionate sugar because most of your recipes call for a 16-ounce bag, and they come in 2 pound bags, but then you have to figure out how to separate it, you know, just as evenly as you can. And I just like the hassle of, for this to be as hassle-free, so I buy the 1 pound bags. Like I said, I don't like the idea of tasting raw egg, but when I'm baking a cake, I baked a chocolate pound cake yesterday, and don't think I didn't lick that ladle. Never thought about those raw eggs, but I'm gonna check it for. Ooh, that's good. Eddie, stick your finger in that and tell me if you think it's got enough cinnamon, please. Is that enough for you to taste?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Teresa? Because to me it can have a little bit more cinnamon. That's what I get for not measuring.
I mean, you could go both ways. I mean, I think it's good.
I could taste the nutmeg in it. That's
Oh,
for
you
sure.
could,
Yeah.
good.
I wouldn't put a whole lot.
Just a little bit more. I should have measured.
You know which
But-
one of the Gooey Butter Cakes is my favorite? And it's
Which
all
one?
into sweet potato.
Oh, listen, the sweet potato. Oops.
That's
The-
one you would never even think about ever making.
I know it, but we at the Lady and Sons, we made the best sweet potato yams that you have ever put in your mouth. And a lot of folks would go back and get sweet potatoes for their dessert. I mean, they were just that good. So at the end of the day, there'd be little broken pieces of sweet potato. And we would take that and strain it and make a gooey butter cake with it. Knock your socks off until next week, y'all.
Yep.
So if you have any leftover sweet potato yams, don't throw them out, honey. Make you a gooey butter cake. All right, so you can see why I added an extra egg, I think. I think you'll be able to see because this is pretty moist, liquidy. Okay, we're just gonna spread that out evenly. And we're gonna put this in the oven. Now, y'all, since we moved back in the house, now you know I hadn't cooked on this stove in a very, very long time. And Eddie and I cooked a turkey the other day. And we said, darn, it got ready in such a hurry. And I made some blueberry muffins, and I said, dang, they got ready quick too. What else did I cook in there? But anyway, I said, well, I'm gonna take my thermometer and put this, turn my oven on 350 degrees and see if it's calibrated correctly. Well, set the oven on 350, y'all. Gave it a few minutes to heat up, came back and checked it, and the thermometer was reading 500 degrees. So that's why I was burning everything. I thought, gosh, do I not know how to cook anymore? Has it been so long? And so I'm using our convection oven that is in the wet pantry over here. So I'm just gonna tote this in there, and this is gonna cook. Now here's the thing. The only way you can screw up gooey butter cakes is overcooking them. Because just because their name has cake in it, you don't want it to be like a real cake, like that kind of cake. You want a gooey center. So usually 40 minutes or 45 minutes, but you want to jiggle your pan and it have a slight movement in the center. So here we go. I'm going to set my timer for 30 minutes so I can start looking at it. Okay, the pumpkin gooey butter cake. I wound up cooking it for about 45 minutes. And you can see it's got a gooey center. Doesn't have the finish of a cake. And you can kind of decorate it any way you want to, but I thought the nuts and the candy corns go along with the fall theme. And to me, if you ever make a pumpkin gooey butter cake, you'll never want to make a pumpkin pie ever again, because this is so incredibly wonderful. And to bring it up another notch, you can serve it with a dollop of fresh sweetened whipped cream, and it's good. So love and best dishes, boy howdy. This takes me back to the end of September, the 1st of October in 1989, when I made my first pumpkin gooey butter cake. Love and best dishes, y'all. Hey y'all, it's Paula Deen. Now, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it and click the subscribe button as well as the notification bell to be alerted when I post a video. Love and best dishes, y'all.